Oh, yeah.
Greetings, Kerbal Killers. Welcome to Kerbalverse Wednesday. Delayed Kerbalverse Wednesday. My apologies for the delay. This was caused by finding a interesting bug yesterday and having to work through it. So my apologies for that. So, excuse me. So we are going to work through today what we had originally planned for yesterday, and that is resources in KSP 102. Most people think that the resources in 102 are regolith based, and they are correct. However, that does say Kerbalverse. It is an R. K, not an R. However, they have changed some of the parameters. Kind of annoying when they do that. But the resource package within KSP 102 is no longer called regolith. So anything that started with rego _ has now had that removed. So I'm going to learn how the resources work, and at the same time I'm going to show you. So I'm also showing not only how to do it, but how to learn as well. One of the fun things that I love to do live on stream. Something that nobody else actually does. So we're going to pull a few things up. This is our 102 DMP directory. We're going to take a look at what is already configured so that we can learn the syntax. So if we go into game data, now what we're going to look for is Umbra Space Industries. Greetings, Empata. Which also reminds me, thank you for the host, LTL King. And greetings, Shirty. So we're going to go into, I think it's colonization, we're going to go parts, and here we go. Drill number 1. Let's go take a look at it. Okay, let's get rid of all the other stuff I've got in here. We need that one as well. We'll chuck that there. So we're looking at the MKS drill, specifically this section. Let's not play that one. So the drills go by Module Resource Harvester now, which I think is a little bit more of a better name. Harvester type 0, that relates to the resource type, 0 being crustal, so mineable, 1 being oceanic, 2 being atmospheric, and 3 being, well, interplanetary, as in space. Efficiency, oops, well, that's used for adjusting how much resource this particular drill gets. So you can have an efficiency of 2, 3, 400%, or you can drop it down to 0.1 if you're using like micro drills. Recipe inputs. This is what it takes to run the drill itself. Most drills will use electric charge, and that is the rate per second. Well, that is the number of units per second. You can, of course, if you're running your own custom advanced generators, use thermal power to run your drills. If you think of Interstellar, some of the engines in there actually use thermal power, and of course the advanced generators produce thermal power that can be used. So, resource name is the resource that you are drilling for. This particular one drills for uranite. Converter name, that's just the name given to basically whatever it is, the drill. It's just what comes up in the user interface. Same goes with those two, pretty much self-explanatory. Not that I'm aware of, Shirty. And I'm not aware of any plans to update it either. Although I could be wrong on that, so feel free to correct me. And I just realised, can you guys read the chat that's on the screen there? I've resized it and I've just noticed the text is a little bit on the small side. But let me know if you can't read it. Input resource again. Why the duplication, I'm not quite sure, but I would imagine that this must match that. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if they do update it, but I believe it would be a lot of hard work. Can't read it. Oh, God. Is that any better with it being black behind it? I keep forgetting that it's white text with that thing. So, animation group, most drills have an animation, module name, module animation group, kind of been through this, but it's still pretty small. Okay. Let me see here. I think I know what I'm going to have to do here. Wait. Oh. I was looking at the wrong cursor then. How's that? I have noticed that. I wonder if that's a time that I can change. Let's see if that takes a bit longer. That looks like it's taking longer. Let's see. Yep, I think that definitely is taking a lot longer. I guess they updated something. Right, let's crack on. Just as the music ends. So, that's the drills. If we have a look at a stock one, we see it's pretty much the same, except this one's got a few extra options on than the MKS drills. So if you have a look at these, again, harvester type, efficiency, resource name, bin through, converter name, bin through, impact transform. I believe the impact transform is either something to do with the effects of dust being thrown up, or it's something that hasn't yet been implemented in KSP. Well, is in a near future update, I should say. Same goes with impact range. Those two kind of goes together. Auto shutdown is some sort of condition for shutting it down. I assume it's either when it starts to overheat, as per below, or when the resource tank that it's going to is full. Of course, generates heat, false. They nerfed heat generation for drills because basically they didn't put any heat radiators in the game. Oops. However, there is a mod out there that supplies heat radiators. Feel free to go take a look. Haven't tested them yet though, mind. But I will be. Hi, are you creating a new part? No, I won't be creating a new part. I will be creating lots of new parts. Well, rather converting old parts from my old CW Tech mod to work from 0.9 to 1.02. So, use specialist bonus. Ooh. Now this one's a very interesting topic of conversation. If you have engineers on board your craft and you are using drills, your drills will get a bonus from those engineers. There is a whole load of math behind the bonuses. I won't even begin to try and fathom out what on earth it is. Not without looking at source code anyway. But rest assured, if you have engineers on board, you will get a bonus of some sort. Specialist efficiency factor. Well, there's your rating for your specialists. So you can boost that right up to whatever you want. Chuck in a couple of engineers and you can mine through a Class C asteroid in seconds. Specialist bonus base, that's to do with the specialist, and again, without seeing the actual math that's involved with that, not quite sure what the figures should be, but one would assume that the higher the number there, the bigger the bonus you get. Specialty engineer, that should be self-explanatory. It looks for engineer Kerbals being on your craft, and the engineers give your mechanics a boost. Efficiency bonus, well, same as these. Not quite sure why they're doing things quite so excuse me, quite so complicated, but oh well. What can one say? Input resource, pretty much self-explanatory. We've seen it many times before. So, ore drill. This one's for an asteroid. Yep. New parameter there, direct attach. I assume that is for a drill type that has attachment arms, i.e. so you dock to, say, an asteroid with the actual drill itself. So basically a claw with a drill. So in this case, false. Power consumption. Well, slightly different format to this one because it's a different module, but still, power consumption, it automatically assumes that you want to deduct electric charge, and that is the rate per second. Efficiency, pretty much as above. Impact range and impact transform, as above. Speciality bonus, as above. Auto shutdown generates heat, as above. Use specialist bonus is in there twice. Insert facepalm here. Specialist efficiency factor, as above, as above, as above, as above. And now, of course, we've just got an animation group for the model itself. Most of that pretty much self-explanatory. The only thing we don't know is how they calculate the specialist efficiency bonuses. But then again, the simple thing to do is to just play around with them. So, that's drills. Holding tanks, we've been through 1,000 times before. The syntax for the config files for any sort of tank that holds resources pretty much hasn't changed. The only thing that is new to all of the part configs, assuming this one has it, and no it doesn't. Isn't that just typical? See if the MKS drills have them. Oh, the MKS drills don't have them either. And here, that one doesn't have them. Ah, typical. There are some values that have gone into the config to do with heat conduction. They are the only new ones, but to be perfectly honest, if you don't specify those variables, you'll use the defaults, and the defaults aren't too bad. So it's only if you need to create a really funky part that you'd ever need to change them. But if I find a config that's got them in, I'll point them out. So, that's the drills. Converters. FS animate generic is just the fire spitter animation generic. We've been through that. Module KISS inventory if you're using KISS. That's the module that stores your parts. Really? Next. That's better. Okay, module. Module resource converter. Converter name is just the one that you give it, along with start and stop animation names. They're just for the user interface. Whatever you put there is seen in the user interface. So you can call it Fred if you want. Input resource. This is what you need to go into the converter. In this particular case, water. And with that ratio. Multiple inputs allowed, as well as multiple outputs. So we've got water, plus electric charge, plus machinery, and the output is liquid fuel, oxidizer, and recyclables. Now what I find curious is the required resource. I assume you need that minimum number of that resource, because it's kind of a weird one. So basically it states that because you're using machinery here, that it will not let you go below that amount. But then again, it says ratio, which is very weird. Kind of doesn't fit in with the rest of the thing, with the rest of the recipe. I couldn't think of the name then. So quite curious as to what that actually does. As far as I'm aware, I have not yet hit any message that says required resource not found or not sufficient. But then again, I installed MKS OKS on the DMP server over the weekend. So I've not really been using it that long. That's pretty much how the converters are done. The only thing is, I thought the converters actually had a... There we go. It's in these. Excuse me. So, dump excess, true or false? Yeah, Shirty. Yeah, MKS parts need machinery to function. Yep, we got that. Not quite sure. Yeah, kind of agree with you on that one. It might be just a number rather than a ratio. Simple way of finding out is just continue to use it, and eventually you'll run out of machinery, and it'll come up and tell you. And then you just look in your resources tab, and if it says 2000, then it's a literal. If it says some other number, then it's a ratio. So, dump excess for output resource basically means that if that one resource that it's creating, if it doesn't have space for it, it will dump what it doesn't have space for. If it's false, then it stops the conversion, but not permanently stop it. So on some of the converters and whatnot, you see a percentage load. I believe it generates that figure from when it fills up or not. So if you're filling empty tanks, it'll be at 100% load until they're full, or until you run out of input resources. Anything else on here that needs to be looked at? Let's take a look at the other refinery one and just sort of confirm it. Animate generic, kiss inventory. Resource converter, this one's for metals, same syntax, dump excess. Pretty much the same, I think. Oh, and of course that part actually contains a store of whatever resource. If you wanted to create a part that also has living and workspace, that's the syntax that you need to do it. And don't forget, you might want to stick that one in as well. And if you are creating a workshop of some sort, that's the module that you need for MKS. That is of course assuming you're using the MKS mod. You don't have to make resources work, but you might want to bear that in mind. So anything in there that I think may be of use? Well, let's take a look at the PDU, which is the power distribution unit, which really is a bad name. Really, it's a power generation unit, but oh well. Let's not go into semantics. So we've got an internal definition there. Okay, we've got a light. Wonderful. We've got crew capacities. Yep. We've got the command module in there. That's what it requires. We've got a USI module in there. Not quite sure what it does. Oh well. Module resource converter. Same syntax that we've seen. So basically we're taking enriched uranium at that rate, output depleted uranium at that rate, chucking out some xenon gas. Okay, so basically it's enriched uranium being converted to depleted uranium and xenon gas. And it's also kicking out a nice amount of electric charge. Wonderful. Contains enriched uranium, which you can tweak. Also holds depleted uranium, which you can tweak. Also holds xenon gas, which you can tweak. Has a battery. If you're using MKS modules, that's for workspace and living space within the unit to increase its efficiency. Connected living space, workshop. It has animations on it for the floodlights. and it's got the module for the flag. Simple enough. That's basically the parts that you need to mine and convert resources. Now let's take a look at what is required to actually make that resource appear in your Kerbalverse. For that, we're going to take a look at the Community Resource Pack. Why the Community Resource Pack? Well, it's needed for MKS OKS, which is now actually called UKS, but it has lots of examples of resources, some mineable, some not. So we're going to ignore that lot in there for the time being. Let's go for metallic ore. So again, resource types tells you there. Express all numbers as percentages. 0 to 100, not 0 to 1. That would be a change from the regolith configs. So, planetary resource. Well, for whatever reason they put a planetary resource in first before a global, but oh well. It says resource name metallic ore. Okay, resource type 0, so mineable. Planet name jewel. Distribution, all zeros. Right, straight away, anyone that's been with me when we were figuring out the resource system for regolith, Shirty may remember this, but dispersal is a new parameter. Variance, as we, well, we'll start from the beginning, shall we? So presence chance is a percentage. Is it going to be present in this location or not? So minimum abundance, which is the minimum amount. Maximum abundance, which is the maximum amount. The variance is how fast it varies between the two. And the dispersal is distance between minimum and maximums. Yeah. I think Shirty gets why I was a bit surprised that they would actually go to the trouble of putting in a special config for Joul's surface. But anyway, so now we get the global resource. Right, so you've got planetary resource, which is the whole of a planet. Global resource is the entire Kerbalverse. Don't get the two mixed up. Global, in this context, does not mean a planet. Global means the entire Kerbalverse. So here, it sets a random chance for metallic ore appearing in any planet within the Kerbal system. So again, planetary resource, there's a specific definition for Kerbal here, and that's its amount. So basically it's saying that there's always metallic ore on Kerbal. I think it's more a case of not getting people whinging when they attempt to land on Jewel. I think it's more a case of that. I should know my favourite trick at the moment is to actually send people to go and land on Jewel. But then again, to my defence, it's only the ones that are bragging that they are good KSP pilots. Yeah, good KSP pilots when they're flying 300-ton ships. Yeah, try and fly something that's like 30 times that, and I might consider you a good pilot. Dispersal. Yeah, it's basically the distance between the peaks. So it's how far between them. Or without actually seeing the math, I can only go from what I've seen within the game itself, and that is it's the distance between the peaks.
User joined your channel.
Hey up. Greetings USW, how are you?
I'm doing okay, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Just doing a tutorial on the resource system in KSP 102.
Awesome.
I don't know if you've been watching along.
Nope, I'm just getting to my computer.
Well, feel free to jump in.
Alrighty.
I mean, as I keep saying all along, without seeing the actual source code and the math, I only go off the things that I've seen in KSP in relation to the things that I've been doing in the config files. As much as I would really love to get hold of the config files. Not the config files, the source code files.
Yeah.
So, that's the config for metallic ore within the community resource pack. Let's take a look at another one, see if there's anything that doesn't show up in metallic ore. Now let's take a look at substrate. Again, we have a specific definition to not put substrate on the surface of Jewel. So then we have a global resource, which is, well, the values for the distribution are different, but it's the same syntax been through. And of course, planetary resource, basically it says there is always substrate on Kerbin. So, judging by the pattern so far, everything is always present on Kerbin. So let's take a look at water. Water's always an interesting one, or at least it is in my configs. So first of all, again, a definition for water not being mineable on the surface of Jewel. And then we have the global definition, which basically says that water might be mineable on planets throughout the Kerbal system. Now, don't forget, resource type 0 is custodial resources, or resources that you mine. However, the next one down is type 1, which means it's oceanic. So you would have to land a floatable craft onto the ocean. And of course, the syntax is now exactly the same for oceanic, which is wonderful because that made no sense in Regolith. Another global resource, resource type 2, which is atmospheric. So this is saying that all planets that have an atmosphere have a 20% chance of having water in the atmosphere itself, which means you can use atmoscoops to grab yourself some water. And again, it's the exact same syntax for oceanic and custodial resources. Again, another godsend that they say that they changed that. I can't tell you how much trouble that gave me from Regolith. So here we have the specifics. Minables on Kerbin, minables on Lathe, oceanic on Kerbin, atmospheric on Kerbin, oceanic on Lathe, atmospheric on Lathe. Now, something that most people that play the game that never go into the configs would not realise is Duna's poles have mineable water. Most people haven't realised that yet. Until of course they actually scan Duna properly. But also, global resource again, that's the old config, which both me and Shirty will probably be cringing at by now. But it's type 3. Type 3 is interplanetary, which means it's found in space. So you can use one of the space scoops, whatever they're called, I can't remember off the top of my head, particle collectors I think, to collect water. And it will literally be dotted around between planets. Kerbal, as in the sun, is not mineable, or at least it wasn't in 0.9, for the simple reason being that its collision mesh was above its surface mesh, so you couldn't actually land on it. You would just literally blow up at 400 and something meters, I think it was. I also believe, and if anyone knows differently, feel free to correct me, but I believe in KSP 1.0 they now have implemented a heat radiation from the sun, which causes your craft to heat up.
I think you're right about that.
I haven't actually been there yet to test it out myself, but that's what I've been told so far. And at some point I will go and test it. That being said, I do have some whopping big heat sinks. Or shall I say heat radiators. So they want a testing as well, and the only way to test them is to get the craft hot. Yes, Shirty. I think I can. I think I can see that one. So that's the water config. Is there anything that we can see that might be funky? Carbonite? Maybe? Again, exclusion definition for dual. Global definition, which kind of is starting to look very familiar. A second global definition for carbonite to be in oceans. A third one for it to be in the atmosphere. And global reference for it to be in space. Interesting. Resource name Carbonite, type 2, which is atmospheric, planet name Joule. Yep, Joule's, well, atmosphere, even though it is just nothing but an atmosphere, actually contains carbonite, which is a wonderful place to go and hide it. Eve. The oceans on Eve all have carbonite at quite a high level. Carbonite definition for Kerban. Kerban's oceans. Kerban's atmosphere. And the space around Kerban itself. You can use planetary resource with resource type 3. So you can define the sphere of influence of Kerban itself as a planetary resource. Don't forget you're using that syntax, not that one. Anything that's resource type 3, have to use those config parameters for. Another planetary definition. This is basically stuff that's found in space around Joule itself, and there's your values. So, those two statements there set a 100% chance of carbonite being around Kerban and Joule at those specific amounts, rather than having random variance. I would imagine this is so that you will have significant amount of resources to get your craft around to begin with. Bit of a cheat really, but well, not so much cheat, but kind of makes the game a bit easy in the unrealistic band. Oh well. Now, carborundum is a kind of super resource, I suppose you could say. So let's take a look at its config as the last one. So we have planetary resource, again, exclusion for Joule surface. So first location is planetary resource, and it says that resource name, which is a mineable resource, on Eve with those amounts. Yep, seen it, Ghost. Another one, Elu, again, mineable with those amounts. And
just go and get that Ghost.
and of course, don't forget, here's the interesting one, planetary resource type 3, which is interplanetary, i.e. between planets, so it's in space, in the area around the Sun, with those amounts. Kinda curious. Why would you define an interplanetary resource around Kerbin's Sun specifically instead of doing a global definition? Kinda curious, that is, because these values here are very small. Yep, Shirty's kind of with me on this one. There seems to be a very small and, relatively speaking, thin band of carborundum around the Sun, although I'm not quite sure what altitude that actually refers to. It seems to be very, very, very close to the surface of the Sun. Yep.
Risk it if you want that.
Indeed, it's very curious because the abundance is actually quite high. So if you did a very low skim around Kerbal, basically the Sun, you would pick up a heck of a lot of carborundium. It's always good to have a look at the configs. You never know what you're going to find as hidden resources. Yeah, Shirty's pretty much got it. It's either the radius or the diameter. I believe it's the diameter. But I mean, the upper altitude of the resource band is, let's have a look at the number of decimal places here. That's 1,000, 10,000, 100,000. Its altitude is 1/1,000,000th of the diameter of the Sun. Can somebody go onto the KSP wiki and look up the diameter of Kerbal? That'll tell you the altitude that it goes up to. 1/1,000,000th of its diameter. Unfortunately, I don't have the wiki open at the moment, and if I try and open something while I'm streaming, it may result in disaster.
Radius is 261,600,000 meters.
Sorry, what was that?
radius, 261,600,000 meters.
According to my math, only Shirty's got it in chat. According to my math, it would either be a max altitude of 2,616 meters or 5,232 meters that it goes up to. So that is a very low swing around the sun. Now, how many people would discover that by accident?
Only discovered as you're crashing.
Well, if they accidentally crash into the sun, they were either intentionally trying to do a low pass around the sun, or they did something seriously wrong. Shirty, basically, yeah, just above the kill zone that's around the sun. It's like, well, basically between 2 and 5,000 meters above the kill band. So, we just discovered something that probably very few people knew about carbonite. So how does this equate to KSP? Well, let's take a look at Squad's own configs. So Squad's own config, Squad's own resource for minables is ore. Oops. And now no one can see the chat. So, ore starts with global resource. Resource name, type 0. So basically that says global as in throughout the entire Kerbal system. And it basically says it's always present on any planet within the system. Minimum and maximum abundance, and variance and dispersal. Variance is a mathematical calculation. I can't remember the actual name of it, but there is a mathematical randomization transform that Regolith used. I can't remember what it was off the top of my head. And it basically made a white noise type map throughout the entire planet's surface. And the bigger the variance number, the more of those basically dots that you actually got on the surface, and the dots would vary between the maximum and the minimum. So now we've got a dispersal value to push the peaks further apart so that they didn't clump together quite so much. So here we have a planetary resource definition for ore, type 0, which is mineable, on the sun. Which basically says there is none there. Now that's just no fun. Personally, if it was me and I was creating a resource mod pack, I would jam pack the sun full of resources, right up to the hilt, just to see if someone would actually try to mine it. But then again, I'm warped and twisted, so another planetary resource definition for Jewel. Again, it's not putting anything there. And again, if it was me, I would pack it up to the hilt rather, just because I have a warped and twisted sense of humour.
You'd be the one to design a ship to land just above the kill zone.
That is possible. And yes, it probably is something I would try and do. So, here we have a little bit more, a different type of resource definition. This one is biome resource. Now, pretty much the same syntax as planetary. But this one is resource name ore. Seeing that one. Resource type 0. We know that. Planet name Eve. Seeing that. Biome name is now a new parameter that we haven't seen. Biome name obviously is the name of a biome, which in this one is Explodium C. Eve has bodies of liquid of some sort called the Explodium C, and this definition here says that there is no ore that is mineable on the Explodium C. Normally I wouldn't have a problem with this config section. However, the last time I checked, the crustodal drills didn't work when you were floating on water, because you weren't actually in contact with the ground. Now that being said, I'm sure there would be somebody that would create a drilling platform that sinks, just so that they could anchor it to the bottom of some ocean and drill there. And yes, I have thought of doing it. Again, again, biome resource. This one is Kerban, and in Kerban's water there is no ore. So this excludes Kerban's oceans from having ore that is mineable in them. Same again for Lathe's oceans, which is called the Sagan Sea, and the Crescent Bay that is on Lathe, which is ocean. So basically it just says the oceans don't have ore that you can mine. Yep, I was thinking that as well, Shirty, when they said about the ocean's cooling craft off finally. The first thing I thought was, well, drills at the bottom of the ocean? That would now actually work. As well as converters and whatnot. So, although, that being said, apparently in 102 they turned off heat production by the drills because there was nothing to get rid of the heat. However, we know there is a heatsink mod, or heat radiator mod, that is available that gives you radiators, and we already showed you where the config value for heat production of the drills actually is in the drill zone config, so you could always turn heat production back on again if you were that way inclined. Let's have another look at something else. They don't have anything else. The only resource that is collectible in stock KSP is ore, which kind of makes sense if you think about it, because you don't have life support, so collect oxygen, and so you don't have food, you don't need anything to make food. Of course, then you don't also don't need water. So you just need one resource to convert to fuel types. Shirty missed it. Okay.
I can show drill heat again, that way Shirty can turn on drill heat for him.
Yep. Here we go, Shirty. Radial drill, using this as an example. Module, resource harvester. And it says that generates heat. Now, what we're not sure of is the value above it for auto shutdown, whether that is referring to auto shutdown if the resource is full, if there's no more space for the resource, or whether that's auto shutdown if it goes over temp.
Way to find out.
Only one way to find out. How much heat? Not got a clue without getting the source code, I'm afraid. I would imagine that it is a mathematical calculation based on probably the efficiency here and any specialist bonus by engineers. With a combination of values that aren't actually in this config, but to do with sort of heat conduction and how quickly the drill can get rid of heat directly in the atmosphere or vent it away into space, so on and so forth. And that is a good point, the one and only Super Terror. Okay. maybe the auto shutdown could also refer to shutting down if out of power. So that's a fair point. But what we do know is the input resource, the one that makes it go, that's the config value, and you don't have to use that resource to make it go. So, as I mentioned, if you're running an advanced generator that might produce, say, thermal power, then you could always use the thermal power to drive your drills. And when I mention thermal power, those that know the Interstellar mod will know what thermal power is. It's basically a controlled, thermal as in heat, but inside an actual medium where it is useful. Yeah, that's the best way of describing it. Think of steam engines and boilers and shoveling coal. That's the only way that I can think of saying it either. Well, that may be maybe the auto shutdown is everything that we've gone across. Maybe it will automatically shut down if something goes wrong, or if it runs out of power, so on and so forth. Maybe it'll automatically shut down on all of those parameters. Until people actually test it, basically turn this to true instead of false, and then go and test it, then we won't know which one or which ones it will shut down on. I don't think anyone has tried it, although I could be wrong. What's that, Shirty? Interesting. Let me go and take a look. He said they were is that the stock drills, Shirty? Stock drill, yes. Right. Let's have a look. Which director is it in, Shirty? Oh, just found where they put the potato roids. Squad resources. I didn't see it in there. Ah, there. Found it. Okay, let's have a look at the stock one, which I thought we were actually in. That's interesting. I don't have those values, Shirty. Ah, the 1.0 drill. Right. What we do, however, have are these. The specialist. Indeed. I'm just wondering if judging by what those config values say and what's still in there, I would say the specialist heat factor and specialist shut-off temp is some sort of specialist, is some sort of special value if you have engineers on board to allow the drill to run for longer before it automatically turns off. Same goes for the default shut-off temp. I would assume that that is a percentage value of maximum temperature of the drill. You're definitely kind of curious. Yep, because the efficiency of the drill goes up with having a specialist on board as well. That's quite interesting. Well spotted there, Shirty. I do have KSP 1.0, so I will go and pull those config values out and actually take a closer look at them. But I'm sure it won't be long before Squad will re-enable the heat tracking of drills and whatnot. So I'm sure they will be back in our configs pretty soon. Indeed it does, Shirty. That's why I have KSPs going all the way back to 0.21. That's a lot of directories. So, what else do we have in the squad configs to do with resources? So if we go in the resources generic config file, Yep, it definitely does, Shirty. So if we have a look in the resources generic file, you'll find all of the resources are basically defined here. So basically it just says resource definition, and name is whatever, density, unit cost, HSP, flow mode, transfer, and is tweakable. We've been through the values before, but there's only a few of them, so let's go through them again.
User left your channel.
Name, liquid fuel. That's just given a name to the resource. Density, this is its, well, basically density. How much weight within a given area. Unit cost, that is the number of Kerbal dollars per unit. HSP is a new value that I haven't come across. It is basically the well, I know it as the specific heat capacity, but it's the value for sort of heat, basically a heat capacity and conduction. It's all to do with the thermal conduction, or as they call it, the thermal flux of sort of fuel tanks and whatnot. Flow mode has a few different types, stack priority search being one, no flow being another, and if I can find it, there we go, all of vessel. I'm sure there's another one in here somewhere, but anyway, stack priority search basically goes through your rocket stack as the normal sort of fuel draw progression. No flow means that it won't flow from other tanks, it'll only take from tank that's actually connected to it. And all of vessel will drain all sources at the same time at the same rate. Transfer equals either got pump or none. So you either transfer it as you're drawing it or you don't. Is tweakable is kind of a cool one. It basically says when you right click on a tank, for instance, in the VAB or the SPH, does that little bar show up that allows you to adjust the quantity that is in that tank. So basically if you set this to false, you will not be able to see how much is in the tank. You will not be able to change it. But setting it to true allows you to change it and customize the tank. Now, having a quick check to make sure there's no config values that we haven't seen. Oh, there's one. Colour. Why would we have a resource definition called colour? I'm going to chuck this one up for chat. Right, anybody watching, why would you have a resource definition called colour? Now, somehow I knew Shirty would say something about the spelling. You're right, Shirty, it is spelt wrong. So, anyone that's watching want to take a guess? Educated guess, shot in the dark, and even take 50-50, although I'm not quite sure what the two options are. Any guess at all as to what colour is referring to? I'll give you a clue. The colour in there is 3 values that equate to R, G and B. Red, green, blue. The values are 0 to 1. Yeah, no worries, USW. Yeah, Shirty kind of knows me too well. It is the map default colour. So let me go back in history a touch, back to 0.90. The only way that you could get resources into KSP was to use the framework called Regolith, coupled with ScanSat and well, you could use a mud pack that had drills and whatnot in, or of course you could make your own, and that meant a ton of other configs that you had to edit to make your own. One of them being a ScanSat config, which also gave you the colour of the resource in the map. What's your prize? I'll tell you later. Because that's kind of changes the subject. So instead, what they have done is they have included a type of ScanSat in the stock for seeing resources, and colour equals is what that is referring to, the colour on the map of the resource. So in order to create your own resource, you've got colour to bear in mind. Ambiguous prize. So, the next question is, how do you then scan for resources? Well, slight point of contention. A lot of people that have been using the stock only stuff have found that using the stock scanner it takes an instant picture of the planet after about 5 seconds, which is unrealistic compared to real life, and certainly not how Scansat did it. It's kind of the simplified way. Now, I believe last night Oak Tree 42 was doing some experiments with the new Scansat and found the value for turning off the instant mapping. I'm going to have to, if I remember, have a word with him. I wonder if he's on the TeamSpeak server. Nope, he isn't. Oh well. I was going to drag him in and actually ask him directly, but... So, there is a config value for turning that off. Taking a look at the resource defaults config file, we can see there heat enabled true, and the comment says thermal effects for generators and drills. Well, we already know the ones for drills is turned off in their own config file, so heat for generators is still on. Now, Oak Tree 42 which one USW? I mean, Scansat scanners always do the swaths, as far as I'm aware. I've never seen a option within Scansat to instantly map a planet. Nope, that's a stock feature. All the stock stuff instantly map the planet after about 5 or 10 seconds. Whereas Scansat does swaths. Yeah, I believe so, USW. I believe Oak Tree 42 found it last night. I need to ask him more details about it. I meant to do it earlier on when I saw him in the TeamSpeak server. We got all about it. So I will definitely do that, and the next time I'm on resources I will definitely mention it. So, taking a look back at the resource defaults, 2 other values. EC min scale basically says do not calc scaled EC till this warp. Yeah, I completely agree there, USW. Do not calc scaled EC till this wall. Now I have no clue what that is. Not very often I say that. Not what's getting me is what EC stands for. Electric charge? Well, that doesn't make any sense because electric charge is governed by the on-rail system. Nope, no clue at all what that one is. And USW jumps in just after I say it. Don't you just love the stream delay? True, Shirty. But I always thought that the electric charge and its usage automatically scaled as soon as you go into any of the warps. So in that respect it doesn't make any sense. So anyway, if we move on to the next one, because I'm pretty sure we don't need to change that for anything, or at least I can't think of anything that we need to change that for. I'm sure I'll find what it is eventually. I usually do. Overlay style. This is the type of style in the overlay, literally. When you go into the tracking station and you click on the little button, which I will show you in a minute, it then gives you an overlay of resources. Right. You can tell it which one you want to use by default. So this one is actually set to line, which, to be perfectly honest, I think looks really awful. So, what is the next step? And I'm going to hit next on the playlist. This seems better. Black magic scanners. So, what's next? Well, let's jump into KSP and look at some of the elements of resource scanning. So, you're going to have to bear with me because my KSP is heavily modified at the moment and not set up for a rapid load. So this may take some time, especially with running OBS as well. Oops. And I need to reorganize my screen so I can now see you. Super wideband scanner. And you know, I was actually doing things in this version of KSP literally right up to the start of this stream, and so it literally must have brought out a new version of remote tech within the last 3 hours. Gotta love it. Oh, and for those that actually want to know what we're running, there's your list. I should point out there is actually more. A few more. So for those that are wondering, I have been using EPL pretty much all afternoon on the DMP server, and it does indeed work. And it works quite nicely. Definitely going to make for some fun on the DMP server. Which reminds me, Ghost, I have an idea about the DMP server. So as soon as I get off stream, I'll be in TS general chat, and we can have a talk about it. You know, a little storyline to it. Shirty, you can use stakes, or you can use the launch pads that it comes with, because you have actually, you know what, I'll just show you. It's gonna be easier if I show you. It's almost started up. That's what we'll do. We'll take the next 5 minutes. I'll show you. USW, behave. I know, tell me about it. So for those that are actually interested, I will take you off to something that I cheated into orbit. And as you can see, I am running remote tech. And it's finished calculating the centre of mass. oh yes, definitely got to have the hazard lights. Nope, doesn't seem to want to go green. Oh well. So each one of these is a pad that you can build a spaceship on. This isn't Opa Terra. This isn't massive. This is just big. This type of size is the stuff I do day in, day out. Massive is the stuff that I launch when I'm having fun. And yes, pack life support is working and works quite nicely. So in here, for this ship, you can see I've got, well, it says I've got 5 pads. Not quite sure why it's coming up with pad 0. I believe it is a bug, which as soon as I've finished this, I will be posting that question on the forum. So if we take a look at one of the other pads, here we go. Oh, that one's actually got the ship that I was building at pad 1 is actually complete. Find an empty pad. Pad 2's complete. There we go. It's an empty one. Go on. There you are. Go away. So in here, and then click on select craft, and our crafts come up here. So in this particular one, I'm creating explorers. Tells you how much resources, which is rocket parts, it's going to use. Tells you what your current storage is. Whack build, and that tells you the time to build it. And away it goes. Runs in the background while you're not focused on it, which is wonderful. You two behave. So that's basically what EPL does. But as you can see, something this massive takes a lot of processing power. So one thing that I definitely need to work on is a smaller version with less part counts. Yeah. Me? Small? You gotta be kidding me. Procedural tanks? Not that I'm aware of. Other procedural parts are. Now, if we take a look in here, we have this button. Been through this before, but let's go through it again. This brings up your resources. So, as you can see, there are a few custom ones in there. So if you have a look at ore, which is the default one, and we zoom in, and it's pink. It's pink because the colour that was in the resource definition is 1,0,1, which is basically full red and full blue, which gets you hot pink. Skip will be pleased. Magenta. Well, yeah. Magenta / hot pink. Whichever you want to call it. It looks hot pink by the time it gets overlaid. So as you can see, you get stuff following the land, so on and so forth. Now personally I hate the lines, so I prefer solid. And I prefer colour to be the gradient, so you can actually see the amounts properly. But that's my personal preference. So as you can see, there's varying amounts. The only thing is, you don't know whether that's a high or low concentration, because it doesn't actually tell you. We can make assumptions. Bear in mind, we're only dealing with the resource ore here. Can you mine it at the KSP? You certainly can. You can mine it on the runway, you can mine it on the launch pad. I'm pretty sure you can mine it on top of the VAB. Although don't quote me on that one. I haven't actually tried it. Yep, and USW says narrowband scanner. Correct. Haven't got to that bit yet. Still working on the resources in 1.2. It's only been out for like a week and a half. But we do have some other custom resources that I've just quickly thrown in there to make sure I had everything right for basically this stream. So there's plutonium-238, carbon, explodium, somehow carbonite got in here, metallic ore we know about, metal ore, minerals, well we know about that, and again they cover the entire surface. Look for oceanic ones. You can kind of see the splodges. And as for water, well, kinda doesn't look good. I think I will be changing the resource config for water. That really doesn't look right to me. Opera, yep. There is a lot of cheaty things that you can do when editing config files. I don't tell you to cheat and I don't tell you not to cheat. I just tell you what you can change. It's up to yourself and how you want to play the game to change the config files accordingly. So for example, one of the things that I asked fellow streamer Igor to write for me is a module manager patch to lower the maximum temperatures of all of the parts. This is 0.9. By lowering the part maximum temperature, it made deadly re-entry very, very, very deadly, to the point where it would quite happily eat very big ships that didn't have heat shields. And I absolutely loved it. It was the most fun I have had in KSP for a long, long time. And I am definitely considering putting it back into KSP. Although that will depend on whether KSP's new version of Deadly Re-entry will behave itself. I like to make things hard. You know how hard I really like to make things? I like to make things that hard. You know, there's the Mun, and we just so happen to have Gilly over here. In a very funky orbit. That's not all. Over here, circling the Mun, I have Mimus. But that's not all I changed. Yeah, we have a few asteroids. I also did that to my Kerbalverse. And this is what's running in the DMP mod pack configs. And I should point out that one of these planets I'm not going to say which one, is actually rotating the sun the wrong way. So it's kind of going in reverse. And the dual system, well, you know I didn't leave that alone. There's Bot, there's Tylo, there's Val, there's Lave. Oh wait, there's one missing. No, it's not. There's Paul. Yep, it's in a very close orbit to Joel, instead of being out on the edge. So, that is the type of difficulty that I love in KSP. I mean, why not? Make things a challenge. Make things harder for yourself. After all, I have been playing KSP for what, 2 years or something? 3 years? I don't know how long. Curly, I haven't. Shirty has. Yep, Shirty did that one, Curly, and sent me the screenies. Is the DMP server open? Opa Terra? No, it isn't. It's by invite only, I'm afraid. We only want certain people that are known to us and also have a specific type of streaming ability, and also they would have to be pretty good game players. Oh, that reminds me, Shirty, as well. Suggestion that I think I might have mentioned it to you or whatever, is to see if you can grab onto the mun with the claw and see if you can keep hold of it. But from what I remember you saying, I think the target for the mun was actually different from where it was visually. So that might not work. But anyway, let's take a look at ScanSat. Come on, Buzzy. Come here. Obviously, ScanSat takes a little bit longer to load. Now, this doesn't look quite so clean because I was having a few issues with ScanSat. But if we flip to resources, we can take a look at things like ore and whatnot. So, if we hover over it with ScanSat, you can actually see the percentage value down here. Which basically seems really boring. It's pretty much plain Jane. Have a look for if I chucked in for plutonium. Which is pretty much the same because I use the same values. So we can pretty much see by that the stock values are boring and plain Jane. So I think we should do something about that. Let's have some fun. So just bear with me while I come out of KSP. So, back to desktop. So, if we go into our game data, we'll notice a CW tech has come up in here. This is my tech pack as I'm converting it. Now, of course, that is all of my KSP directories. Yep, got quite a few. 20 something, I think. So, that is the 0.9 config pack for CW Tech, which has to be converted over. Joy. Again, going into resources, there we are, there's all the originals. Don't need that one. So now we've got all of these, and all of these need to be converted. So let's take a look at plutonium. Oops. And nobody can see chat anymore. There we go, I'll do that. So if we have a look at plutonium in here, you can see that my configs were much more fun. We had specific biome related configs. So this one is the polar crater on Mon. Now basically these have to be changed and upgraded. Much fun. So let's get rid of that config. Get rid of that one. That's the ore, so we'll keep that one. Get rid of that one. I think water may get overridden because this config, not so much a fan of it. Substrate, we can get rid of that. Get rid of that one. That one. That one. That one. Log file. That one. And get rid of that one. So we'll keep ore open as our base config to work from. One other file that needs to be opened is I have set up a fallbacks config file, because one of the, not so much bugs but issues that I found with Regolith was that you have to have a global resource for everything before it will actually pick up the resource. Not actually tested whether that is still true in the resource pack that is within 102, but whichever. Alright, where is... there you are. So let's take a look at the fallbacks. I have definitions for oxygen, plutonium, explodium, heavy metals, space plasma, unobtainium, nitrogen, carbon, sulfur, water, oxygen, plutonium, explodium. Oh wait, hang on. Didn't we just go through them? Yes, we did. Because of the resource type. Had to have global resources for every single resource type back in at KSP 0.9 regolith. But we haven't quite seen that so much so far. But there has been global resources. So we might as well just leave it in since it's not doing any harm. What we do want to find is we have a global resource for carbon. Do we want to leave it? I think we can all safely say that carbon's going to be present in small amounts everywhere throughout the system. You know what? I'm going to leave it in there. The only question is, do we want carbon to be present in water as well? You know what? Why not? So what we're going to do is we're going to take carbon and get rid of it. Because all we're going to do is define a global resource for it, give it the correct values. So what was the default one for ore? Dispersal of 3. Let's try 10. What was the variance for it? 50? Yeah, we'll leave that. What else do we have? Explodium.
Oh yeah.
Thank you for the host, Oaktree Funny too. But again, let's set it up with the same values. And same goes for this one. Right, where are you? Type 1 in water. Not really. Wait a minute. We're missing something there. We don't want water defined for all bodies of liquid. Or at least not in a global config. So now we're up to atmospheric, and we don't want oxygen or water defined to be in all atmospheres, so we set them all to 0. And then we go for interplanetary, which is between the planets, i.e. floating around in space, which we set everything to 0 except space plasma. We know it exists in real life, so why would it not exist in KSP? So I set it up, and since the syntax is pretty much the same, we can keep it. So going back in here, we have a few globals set up. That is basically a catch-all. So on all the planets that we don't specify, it gets the global resource because it works on a hierarchy system. So it goes biome resource at the top, then it falls back to planetary resource, and if there isn't a planetary resource defined, it falls back to global resource. If there isn't a global resource defined, then the resource doesn't exist. And that's how regolith works, and that's how the resource system in 102 works. So let's go and save that. So looking at plutonium, what needs to be changed? It depends on how you want to set your resources up. If you are wanting to cover a large biome area and you wanted little spikes in the biome area, then you need all of the config values, which would then include dispersal. So basically you need to do that. Bear with me one moment. Right, sorry about that. Shirty, to answer your question, if you scroll down my Twitch page, you will see, I can't remember which panel it's in, one of common resources of information, I think I called it, something like that. And it gives you a link to the KSP wiki that gives you all the biomes on the different planets. So let's have a look down the plutonium config. So we've got a specific definition for the polar craters on the Moon. Right, and we have one more for Vol's poles. And that's it. Very specific locations, and it won't exist anywhere else in the Kerbalverse system, which is exactly how we want it. Now, you need to understand what this resource is used for. Plutonium-238 is the fictional and non-existent resource that is described as being used in the RTGs for the game. Now, personally, I hate those RTGs with a passion. As far as I'm concerned, they're a part that shouldn't be there. because basically they don't actually convert a resource, and there's no sort of limit to how long they'll last for. So they basically give you something for nothing. So what I did was I grabbed some of the reactor models from Interstellar and I converted them to use plutonium-238 as a resource. It then burns the resource and gives you power. I'll burn in inverted commas. Those borders that we saw, Shirty, I haven't seen them so far, but I haven't looked that closely yet. But I will be doing. And if they're still there, then you can bet I'll file a bug report. But I'm going to have to... I'm sure it exists in real life, Ghost. Yep. I was on about the game being a fictional resource. As in, it's mentioned in the comments for the RTG, but it's not an actual resource. So I created it as a resource. So, plutonium-238, relatively scarce in the Kerbalverse. Is there much that needs to be added to this? Not really. That's pretty much it. It should work more or less as is. So, we're going to save that. What else are we looking for? Let's take a look at Explodium. Again, another very specific resource. Not done all of the converters for it, but Explodium is basically a compound, if you will, that's in liquid format that can be broken down into highly efficient fuel. So basically the converters will just refine it to liquid fuel, and lots of it. So as you can see from the biome resource, that it to be type 1, which is oceanic, and put it in the Explodium Sea on Eve. That's pretty much where I got the name from. So those bodies of water, of liquid rather, on Eve, you're gonna have to land on them. And you're gonna have to float on them to get this resource. Although that being said, you could of course, it's some sort of contraption with a great big arm on it that sits right on the bank and dips the nozzle into the sea. I suppose you could do it that way if you really wanted to. But anyway, all that needs to be updated with this one is pretty much that. So the next one is it's available as type 0, which is crystal, so you mine for it, on the impact ejector on Dres. Now if you don't know where that is on Dres, you're gonna have a lot of fun. But of course, as soon as you scan for it, you'll see where it is, and you'll start picking up all the biomes. Anything that needs to be done is that. Just add the extra parameter in. I'm pretty sure the default is 0 anyway, but it's either 0 or 1. So that one can be saved. Now let's have a look at my config for water, wherever it is, which isn't actually in there. Helpful. But it is in this one. So this is my config for water. Bear in mind the global resource disables it. So I had type 1 on Kerben, so the entire all the oceans on Kerben were defined as being water, containing water, and that's the values I had for it. Now I also set specifically by biome as well, and I had mineable type, which is type 0, Kerben's ice caps, and Kerben's tundra. Now I also set Minmus. The greater flats on Minmus as having water, and the great flats I've got a bit of water. The flats I've got a bit, and of course the Sagan's Sea on Lathe has water, and of course Lathe's poles contain water. So I had a bit more of a fun config and a little bit more what you would expect of realism. So I'm quite sure that the water config that is within the community resource pack will shortly be getting deleted. So what do we need to do to update that? First of all, copy it over. Right, and there we go. Now, because The community resource pack, which is also present on the server, has water defined for this. Oh, there's something else that I have forgotten to do. I need to make sure regolith underscore is taken out as well. Oops, my bad. Yeah, thinking about it, I could have just done this very quickly with a find and replace. Never mind. So, because the CRP comes with water resource definition, that will be getting removed. In fact, you know what? I'm going to do it now. And it is that one. Say goodbye. I don't want you. There we go. I've just replaced the CRP's water resource definitions with my own. Bye bye. And that is how you set up the resources in the game. Really? Still we're having an argument over RTGs? Anyway, fullbacks has already been changed. That one's the stop one. So then it's a case of going through all of the resource files. But I'm not going to do that because that would, considering there is one or two people that are watching this stream, or maybe 3 people that have been invited to the DMP, going through the configs and telling them where stuff is just isn't going to be fun. I like to have a few surprises here and there. So I'm going to do that off stream. Now what we need to look at is ScanSat stuff, because I think it's pretty much decided with the DMP we're going to be using ScanSat a lot more than the one that's built into the stock. So we need to look at the scanners and see how ScanSat is now set up, because I can guarantee it's going to be different. So I've only had part of the reason that this stream was delayed from yesterday is because of ScanSat and finding a rather interesting bug. Well, not so much bug as such. What can I say? I set the rotation of Kerbalverse wrongly. Which caused a problem with ScanSat. I reported it. Whether they'll do something about it, I don't know. Since I can't see, well, like the number of people that would even change the speed at which Kerbin rotates would probably be very small, and out of them the number of people that would set it to, well, the values that would cause an issue is probably just me, statistically speaking. So yeah, they probably won't change it. Or should I say, put in some sort of error checking. So if we go ScanSat, and we're looking in here. Resources directory, ooh! Set of config files. No shirty. Interesting set of config files here. Science defs, we know what that's for. That's for the science stuff in career mode, so we can ignore that. So we've got scan ATM, scan cores, and scan resource. Let's take a look at scan resource to begin with. We recognise this type of config. So it says there, scan type values below 64 are reserved for ScanSat sensors, so don't assign them. However, one of the things that I commented on whenever I last went through how to create your own resources is that the scan type doubles each time. This is a binary sequence. 64, 128, 256, 1024, 2048, 4096, and so on. It's a bit-wise sequence. A walking one sequence, as it's often referred to. So why they've done it that way, I can only assume that it's to do with the actual way that the resource map is generated and recorded. So in here you have to have the resource defined to a scan type, which is kind of annoying because I'm pretty sure some of these are using the ones that we've already created. Already created? Yep. We had them in 0.9, scan resources. Let's take a look. So, slight change in config values if I flip between them. So, colour empty and colour full are now not in the scan resources config. So I'm going to have to take them out. But more specifically, my scan type 64 is linked to oxygen, and in ScanSat itself, 64 is linked to Kethane. So all of my numbers have got to be changed. Yay. That's going to be fun. So what number do these go up to? What the heck is aquifer? Aquifer? Aquifer. Anyone know where aquifer is used as a resource? Is it interstellar? Echethane, it does still exist, Shirty. I'm afraid. Nope, I've never heard of it either. Yep, not in Interstellar. But anyway, so you've got minerals, substrate, carbonite, and I've seen ore at the top somewhere. So I have to go from the next number up from that one, which is also going to be fun, because if we look at mine, I have a jump up to 262, which is that one, but at least there's two of them that I don't need to change. So changing mine over is going to be a complete and utter problem. Greetings, the pixelated fox. Yep. They probably skipped them for a reason, so I'm not going to use them. Now, what else? That's entirely possible, Opaterra. Because Shirty, mine doesn't include the stuff for MKS, OKS and EPL, as well as some of the other mods that I use. So it's actually going to be easier if I change mine to coincide with what's already in ScanSat. Strangely enough, there's actually less resources in mine than there is in the ScanSat one. So, if we look at colours, yep, Aquifer is not TAC life support. So if we look at colours, this is a brand new config file. And this is the first time I'm actually looking at it. So ScanSat stuff was only installed on the DMP mod pack yesterday. And straight away I found a issue which took me pretty much all evening to track down and find out what it actually was. So, but anyway, doing things live right in front of you guys, showing you how to do things, kind of what I'm here for. So, what can we deduce from the config file? Right, first of all, those two there is the tolerance for scanning, by the looks of that, which is 10,000 above or below. So if it says 150 kilometers polar orbit, you have to be within 10,000 kilometers of that orbit. default max height range. That is for the basically the scale on the colour coding. Okay, no worries, Ghost Rider. Have fun. Oh, didn't realise it was 2 AM. Oh well. Default palette. Well, the palette is colours that are used, which of course gives you the name default. High and low biome colours. That is red, green, blue, and whatever the one is. What's the fourth one on red, green, blue? Is it luminance? Something like that. It's something like luminance. So that gives you colours for basically biomes. Biome transparency, that is how opaque things are. Wait for chat to catch up with the stream. Stock biome map false. Stock biome map false. Now we know what the stock biome map is, so why would the value be false? That one's an interesting config value. One worthy of being played with at some point, methinks. Just to find out what it actually does. So if we then look, some low slope colour, bottom high slope colour, top low slope colour, top high slope colour. Well, they are the different scan types. I'm not sure on that one, Shirty. You're actually the first person that's suggested the biomes might be procedural. Certainly within the realms of possibility, but maybe? Don't know. Until I've actually scanned Kerbin and the other planets, I couldn't. That music was sending me to sleep. Let's find something that can keep me awake. So until I've scanned Kerbin and a load of other planets, then I can't tell whether the biomes have changed or not. So It's literally been less than 24 hours. It depends on how you set the resources up, Shirty. If you go by planetary config, then it's a procedural setup. But if you go by biome config, then obviously it's by biome. It'll limit that resource to that biome. So, right. Those two are the colours and the colour scale, used for the different types of scans within ScanSat. So you've got high slope and low slope. Which is basically referring to the high resolution and no, not high resolution. The high and low altimeter scans that are in ScanSat. So we then look at the rest of the config. ScanSat's quite difficult to sort of describe and understand if you have never used it before. So forgive me if I'm falling over words at some points, and it's also 2 AM. Wasn't quite expecting to be streaming this long, but oh well. There's a lot of changes and differences, so gotta go through them. So, ScanSat altimetry. I'm pretty sure you're not going to want to change any of this. Because this is all about ScanSat's own built-in scanning. Now, the only time that you're going to want to change any of this is if you add your own planets in. So ignore that section. Now ScanSat resources is what we're going to be interested in now. So we've got ore already defined in here. So we've got low resource colour and high. These are the colours. Low resource is like hardly any, and high resource is full. So if you have a look here, we've got colour empty, colour full. And it goes over direct correlation to those two values, except you have an additional one at the end. Transparency, that's seeing through the colour. So, default min value and max value. Self-explanatory. So then you've got gold. Then you've got the planetary configs that can be set for each and every planetary body, and which they've even got one in here for the sun, which kind of indicates that you can scan the sun somehow. So the reason that stuff is still in PNG is because it doesn't save anything by converting it to DDS. Or in fact, it would be worse to convert it to DDS. Yeah, the map itself is basically procedurally generated from an overlay. But the point is, ATM no longer works. Well, in the conventional sense of how it did. Because all the textures are now going to get converted to DDS. So that's the question about ATM. If everything is starting to come in DDS, that's entirely possible, Shirty. I know certain mods that were very quickly released when 1.0 was released, did not have DDS compression on them. But now, a week and a half later, the mods are coming with DDS compression. But anyway, that's an interesting debate to have actually on the forum. Which really I should go and take a look at the ATM boards and see what people are actually saying at some point. So we can ignore the scan ATM, and that's all of them. So now let's take a look at the actual scanners themselves. So if we look at the radar scanner, it's the same part config that we've seen countless times, but in this config we do have two of the additional config values that go in because of the new aerodynamics and thermal shock, and that is the emissive constant, which is heat emissions from the part itself, and the thermal mass of the part itself. So how much heat it can absorb before its temperature will increase by 1 degree centigrade, for example. That's also true, Shirty. So, but the bit that we're interested in is this. Has that changed? Name equals ScanSat. Well, that's the module name. That won't change. Sensor type 1. Well, we know that the first numbers up to 32 were reserved for ScanSat internals. This is number 1. FOV, which is field of view in degrees. Minimum altitude is in meters. Max altitude also in meters. Best altitude, which is apparently well, most efficiency, highest efficiency, I should say. Scan name is just for the user interface, and power is how much power it's using per second. The animation name is obviously if the model itself has an animation, you need to run the animation so that the model would, for example, open up as a dish for scanning. So pretty much that section there has not changed. The only thing you need to be aware of is the scan type number. Which means my custom.
Hey, CW.
Hey, USW. Which means my custom scan all part is using the wrong sensor types. So that also needs to be changed. Joy! So is there anything else within ScanSat that we need to take a look at? The answer is no. That's pretty much everything about the resources to do with 1.0 and setting up brand new resources. Now, at the same time, I also compared to 0.9 and the slight differences. It would seem, and Shirty will back me up on this, that some of the criticism I had about Regolith and the way its resource system worked has been implemented into stock KSP. So somehow, well, I'm probably not the only one that would have had that view, but I guess someone relayed that information to them, which is always wonderful. It makes mods better to do it that way. So the stock resource system looks absolutely wonderful. Looks like it's going to be a load of fun for people to configure it. So basically, I've just shown you how to do it. So I think I've pretty much covered everything to do with create the explanation behind creating your own resources. What I was originally going to do tonight is to actually convert all of my resources over live on stream so that you can actually see me do it step by step after I'd explained everything. However, I've been streaming for 3 hours 20 minutes. It's 2 AM here, so I'm not going to start doing that now. So I'm pretty much going to start wrapping the stream up. Does anybody that's been watching this have any questions? Now is the time to chuck it up in chat, and I'll see if I can answer. USW, you might know the answer to one question. noticed that ScanSat has a config for active texture management, and yet its textures have already been converted to DDS.
Okay.
So the question is, what benefit would ATM have if all the textures have been converted to DDS?
I don't know that it would have any benefit unless it's... Yeah, I don't know that it would, because it's already compressing everything to DDS.
That's pretty much what I was trying to work out. Now the only things that are excluded is the icons directory, which has a couple of PNGs.
It's still filtering those out for any that are using.
I mean, that then raises the question, if mods now are coming with the textures already compressed, then what's the use in using ATM? And since people can...
probably not really much.
Since people can grab the DDS converter program and run it manually themselves for any mods that for whatever reason haven't been compressed, then what's ATM going to be used for?
That I don't. Good question.
Yep, question from Opatera. I have to look at a different screen to be able to read your name. Texture replacement, is that mod still useful? Well, you still have textures, so why would you not want to swap them out? I mean, I would say yes, myself. What would you say, USW?
A texture replacer is definitely still useful because it allows you to substitute textures in for the default ones.
Yep, I was pretty much thinking the same thing. I mean, texture replacer can be used to, say, for example, take a fuel tank and apply a, I don't know, say a Dr. Pepper texture to it.
Correct.
Or maybe Coca-Cola, or whatever your favourite fizzy drink is.
Yeah, right, ATM is
No, that's not ATM. Texture replacer is literally as it sounds. It replaces one texture with another. Active texture management actually compresses textures. Opatera, what do you mean about Kerbal heads and stuff?
So before they had Kerbal heads that were female heads, and they had different hairstyles and hair colors, and stuff like that.
Right, yes. And
and those still work.
And the spacesuits as well. You could change the colours on the spacesuits. Although I really wanted to get into that and installed it and never got it to behave itself. It was doing
That still works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I installed it, it was doing some really funky stuff and had to come back out again. Yep, Shirty's got it pretty much nailed in one go, with the difference between active texture management and texture replacer. Yep, and of course we have Unseeing Whale on Capcom with us, so thank you to my bot. Yep, Shirty pretty much has it in one. Is there any more questions from people in chat? You gotta love the stream delay. Yes, I thought I'd approach the subject of textures while you were in chat. Thought you might appreciate that one. Okay, well, since there's no more questions and I'm not far off wrapping the stream up, just letting everybody in chat know about a few changes. Some of you will notice that I haven't been using Nightbot recently. Nightbot has been sacked. I haven't yet banned it from the channel again, but I think that's not far off. I've been using CWBot. One of the features of CWBot is a points system, and whenever you are sat here in chat watching me stream, you will be gaining points. So if you type in !points, you will see what points you already have. Oh, be aware, there is a cooldown on the commands, so you might want to try again, Shirty. That's so that people can't spam them. Can't remember what I set it to. So, there's a lot of interesting features with the point system, which I will now demonstrate. Nope, the bot can't run its own commands. Oh well. I'll just do mine instead. do a barrel roll. Oh, come on. Right, so a lot of features with the points system, which will be used later on for things like competitions and maybe giveaways, and by later on I mean literally later on, not in a few hours. So one of the things that's set up is Cave Shirty. One of the things that is set up is raiders. So if I say go and raid a specific person, and you jump into their chat and say CW raid, you will get extra points for it. So likewise, for those that sit in my chat and lurk, they get 1 point for every hour that they are here. For those that watch my stream, and are active in chat, get 2 points per hour. So it creates a very interesting system. And of course, if I'm not streaming and you're in my chat, you don't get anything anyway. Does the bot know someone did the raid? It does, but only while the bot is active. So you only have the window of me still being online to actually say CW raid. But it's only at the target that I specify as well. Unfortunately, it only allows one target, which is really annoying.
Feature though.
Yep, so just bear with me. I will see if we can find someone to raid. Move just yet. As soon as I can pull something up. I've got that many Firefox windows, it's unreal. That one. Sorry, what was that?
I said Dan's playing Cities. And us and EJ are on.
We have DOS doing Korea. And we have Ide doing his favourite, which is shuttles. Oh wait, Shimmy's doing remote tag. I didn't see Shimmy there for a moment. Well, considering remote tech is quite new, how do people feel about raiding Shimmy? What do you say, USW?
Sounds good. I like that one.
Right, just bear with me. I will set it up within the pot. And we'll see if this works. Don't move yet.
Give me Shirty.
Wait for it.
Timing thing. I think we can fix that just by changing our orbital period. Remote tech hype? Yes! Remote tech hype! We're very happy that remote tech is working now.
Wait for it.
Alright. Let's, use it. Why? Why? What's going on?
And go.
That... Why are you wiggling about?
What are we putting in chat?
I think we're gonna be fine, but it just kind of scared me all of a sudden that things were
Just
wiggling
link
about.
to shimmy.
Slow down a bit. Alright, let's go ahead and lock that in. Let's go ahead and time warp up. Let's go ahead and switch on back. Do I have scan set yet? I don't think I need it. Do I need it? I don't think I need it, do I?
It's always CW raid. Oh, it definitely does not like me streaming and
9
watching
seconds.
somebody else at the same time.
Time to intercept. If I were to just do this, like... at 30 seconds away, would that work? CW raid? CW raid! What's going on? Who's CW? Who is CW? Is this somebody I should know? I feel bad. Okay. Here we go. Target. Comm Warrior! Comm Warrior! Ah! Okay, Comm Warrior! Comm Warrior! What's wrong with my speech today? Thank you very much for the raid, buddy. I do appreciate that. Comm Warrior 69. Thanks for those, buddy. Get a shout out to Comm Warrior. Were you playing some KSP? I knew you played KSP on stream. I gotta follow you then. Of course. Follow. Follow done. There we go.